Hello and welcome to Dungeoneered, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Josh.
Let's do this. So Josh, we last week started kind of like a new Lukewarm Open series as I adjust my microphone because I suck at podcasting.
Hey, we're professionals.
We're definitely professional. My microphone,
and there's a low tremor.
My microphone stand, like I'm sitting really far away from my desk and my microphone stand has to like, you know when you try to like stretch and reach and you just like can't make it? That's what my microphone is doing right now. It's like I gotta reposition myself. But anyways, we started last week a new kind of like little Lukewarm Open thing that I kind of wanted to experiment and try out with. And that's kind of like the concept of you are given no time, no nothing to prep a D&D campaign, right? Players come up to you, 4 people come up to you, and they're like, hey, let's start a D&D campaign. We're starting next week. Cool. And you're like, cool. And then you start a D&D campaign. And so I kind of wanted to make this concept of where we try our best to make a D&D campaign without any world building at all. It's just you have to jump into it. And so last week we started trying to brainstorm some ideas about how and where a group would start. And if you have these 4 random, like barbarian, wizard, cleric, ranger, or whatever in your party, how do you run a D&D campaign without it? So we came up with, well, we're going to kind of start in this town, and we decided that how we're going to kind of get the party together is we're going to have this NPC who they meet and kind of like gets them out of a bad situation. We didn't determine what that was. We didn't determine how they did it, but it was more along the lines of this good guy helps them get out of a situation, but he actually is like kind of working with somebody who's evil or maybe is evil himself. And so I kind of wanted
But I kind of had it more less of him being a good guy and more of him like, I don't have time for this, and like helps them and walks on.
Okay, got it.
So they don't have a whole lot of time with
I guess more along the lines of what I was thinking is he's like a perceived...
Yes, he's a perceived good guy.
Perceived good guy.
Because one of the things is you want to set up stuff early that sounds like you did a lot of prep for it, and then figure out what the details are later.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have the time.
Yeah, like he is a perceived good person within society, like a guard captain or something along those lines, right? Like somebody who's trusted in, at the very least, a good person within society.
Yeah, and gets your parties like thinking about, oh, who could he be? What's going on?
Exactly. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to build this town. I kind of wanted to start, because we're going to take the next few weeks to kind of like build this town and make a session. Like say you took an average week, you got 7 days, you do like 20 minutes of prep each day, right? And you make a campaign. So I kind of want to do that for us. So today I want to make the town. And this is kind of difficult because when you're thinking of making towns, at least in my mind, you think a lot about the world. Where is it located? What are we looking at here? And if you don't have time to make that kind of stuff, it gets a little bit trickier, right? So, when you think of a D&D town, a good starting town, the essentials you need in it are as follows, ? What do you think those are? Ooh, am I going to stump you for the first?
No, I just don't like the question.
Okay, why don't you like the question?
Because I don't think it needs to be a starting town. I don't think there has to be. I think the answer is nothing. I think
you don't think it needs to be a starting town?
No, I think you could have it start in a city that has a million things. You can start in a town that has very little to nothing. It could literally just be a shack and one person living there. I don't think there needs to be those requirements or rules for any of it.
See, for me, and I think I'm gonna differ from you here. I think in this scenario, I think the town is the best scenario because you can create things to do, but you don't have to create a lot of stuff, right?
You can limit them.
You can limit people really easy in a town. I would say have interesting things that are occurring.
If I wanted to create a town that limited the players just for now, as almost like a tutorial town, I would have it under some sort of quarantine. So they would have to close the doors close the walls, not allowing anyone in or out.
Interesting. That is a very interesting concept. And do you think that would work in like a quick?
As long as you make it interesting. Like, as long as you make whatever, like, I would make the city or town seem big, so that when the party asks to do things, or like maybe even have it be like the party is desperate, like the party has no money, they don't know where they're gonna find food, they're a low enough level they can't just create food, and so they're gonna have to find some way to make money, and whether they want to try and do that through mundane means, like, oh, we're going to try and run a job real quick of like, oh, let's transport food or transport something around the town. Or like, is there any hope of quests, of some sort of board of that people need adventurers help for in the city? Like, they have to find their way of how they're going to make the money.
Interesting. See, I kind of had a little bit of a different take and a different idea. When I'm thinking of like a quick starting town that I can throw together really quick, I think of a town made by necessity. Not necessarily like the people there live there because they are required to live there, but the players end up there because of necessity, right? Because I don't have time to sit and think about a backstory. I don't have time to sit and think about a world, but I have time to put a party in a position where they have to go to that town. And I have time to not necessarily make them think that they're required to go to that town, but that the circumstances that they find themselves in bring them to that town. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so my thought is you have this long session, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that I start in this town, but halfway or 3/4 of the way we end up in this town. And so if I was in this position and I was running this kind of campaign and trying to create really fast, I got a week to do it, my first initial thought is I need the party to get together somehow. Right? That's the biggest question of all D&D campaigns, right? That's always my, at least for me, that's always my least favorite thing to do, because I'm always like, I don't know how to make players feel like they're a party.
I do want to say that in relation to what we were talking about before we started recording, I think if you're trying to delay first session, like, to kind of with only creating stuff that your party's not going to like run a million miles away from, doing the starting that we were talking about, that you love how Brennan Lee Mulligan kind of has people in these microcosms of focusing on their life and then eventually getting them together partway through. Like, if you start someone, like one person walking to the town, another person in the town trying to do something, like, and you kind of focus on these small stories to start, that will give you more time.
Absolutely. No,
and
absolutely.
Also, when you're focusing like that, I don't think a player's a player's idea won't be, oh, I need to run away from this. It's like, oh, this is a story, it's leading me somewhere, I'm going to focus on this and not screw around.
Right. Well, and what's good about that too is that the players do the majority of the work, right? Like, they send you their backstories and stuff. But I'm also thinking, though, and I don't know how common this scenario is. Probably not. I know my first campaign started this way, actually, where a bunch of people came to me and was like, "Let's play D&D," and I'm like, "Okay, let's play D&D," and I have no idea what I'm doing. But I think because if I look back when I was, let's say, like 15 or 16, my first D&D exposure to D&D, I don't even remember making a backstory for my character, like, officially, like, it was kind of like, here is my cool wizard. My first character was a wizard, which is, for some people might be a mistake. But
hey, mine was a druid.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That's a lot of rules to know.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I'm the same way, because I was like,
okay, Wild Shape, how does this work?
Class.
Okay, but I'm Moon Druid. How do I... Okay, so I can have higher CRs, but now I have to know the CR system. What is the CR system? And this is before D&D Beyond, so you have to like look in the book to be like, what beasts are my CR that I could do? Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And my problem was I just opened the player's handbook and I was like, wizard, cool, I get 7 spells at level 1. Open up first level spells. Oh, I gotta read 35 spells. I have no idea what any of these do or what any of this means. But so I think with, like, when again, when I first was exposed, I didn't really make a backstory. It was like, here's my wizard. This is what I think he looks like in my head. This is what I think he does in my head. This is kind of like his personality, and then like vague, oh, maybe he didn't have parents or whatever. Or maybe he did have parents or, like it wasn't really a fully, created character. And I think that can be a problem for a lot of people. And so my issue with starting the way that like Brendan Lee Mulligan does in this scenario is that a player's backstory kind of relies a lot on your world. And if you don't have a lot on your world, it's a little bit more difficult. But I do love the idea still, though, because then the players can make stuff in your world, right? They come up with this backstory and you just throw it in there. Like, you're okay. It's there.
See, now the thing is, my first encounter, my first character, I was kind of the opposite. I wrote a backstory. Really? I had all this stuff where I had wants and things, and my character had stuff that they wanted to do. But it was thrown into a world with such an opposite play style than what I was expecting that it felt almost like my character's backstory didn't matter and wasn't and like who I was as a character. I could literally be swapped out with anybody and it wouldn't change the story. Like nothing. Yeah. It felt like my character had no meaning and no purpose other than as a stack of hit points and a few spells.
It's just for you to enjoy, I guess. You don't really get to experience it within the game, right?
That's the person I played with was a guy, his son, my dad, and me, and one of the guy's friends. I
think I played a one shot with them, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah,
that was my first one shot I'd ever run. That was my first time DMing.
That was your first one
ever, and you guys cheesed it. And it was fantastic, and I will forever remember
what happened.
I had guys in a cave, a bunch of like werewolves and wolves in a cave, and you guys just laid down.
Presents guys in a cave.
You guys just laid down. I think it was like spike growth or something out front. So every few feet that they ran through this, they took damage. And you guys came at it from such an angle that you had a good view into the kind of small outcropping cave that they were in. And so you could either take pot shots at them or just wait till they run across. And when they were like, just you cheese the whole encounter.
Yeah, I think the only thing I remember from that was getting into like wherever this encounter was like incredibly like this is how it has to be type thing. That's all I remember. And I remember too, your dad was like, Josh, that's not how the rules go.
Oh, don't bring that up, Aaron. That's why I can never play with him.
I love your dad.
That's why I can never never DM for him, because he's like, oh, you're my child. I will teach. You can't. I'm like, no, I'm the DM. This is how it works. It was just like
so funny.
It was like, why are you fighting me on this? Like, this is my first time DMing. Like, just it's okay. The world won't end. Oh,
that was so funny. And because it was one of my first time playing. So my first campaign, and we're way off topic now, but who cares?
We are so far off the topic.
My first time playing, it was not a very fun experience, right? It was very, very typical. Like, you just show up with a character sheet and you sit down and you play, right? And there's not really, it's like a book that the DM wrote and you follow it type thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not really anything there. And I don't even really remember much about it, because it was one of those things where you go to D&D and you're like, do I really want to go to D&D today? Like.
Yeah. So as I was going back to, though, that was how my first one was. And I want to say before we leave it off is that, so this guy had been the person that we played with, he had been playing D&D for a long time, him and his son and other people, and him and his son are very different types of people than I am and my dad is.
If I remember correctly, they were very like and this isn't like being mean, I want to really be clear.
Okay.
They were like really game the game people.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's how they enjoyed it. They enjoyed it for, I want to see if I can make something OP. I want to see if I can game the game or outsmart the game.
Yes.
And so, I mean, let me be honest. The kid, I say he's a kid. He's like 12 years older than me. He's just the son of the other guy. He graduated college when he was 13, like with a I believe master's degree. He is very smart. That is the type of person that he
play
is.
Paladin, right? He played a paladin.
I don't remember what he played there, but in our game he played a wizard. And so it was kind of the kind of games that they had learned that they both enjoy was the dad challenging the son who was super intelligent.
Yeah.
So for people like me, and it kind of just felt like I'm just here for the ride, and it was or it felt like, oh, we're just solving puzzles. Like it doesn't feel like the world isn't that interesting. The characters aren't like it doesn't feel like we're a part of a political system where we're trying to have our own ideas met. It felt like
we're not telling a story together.
Yeah, we're solving puzzles. And hey, look, we solved this puzzle. Now we get a keep. Hey, we solved this puzzle. Now we get a weapon. Like, and they love that, and that is totally reasonable and made for in a D&D game.
Oh, totally.
I just don't want to be a part of it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not my favorite type of game too, but that's not a long-term campaign I enjoyed. And so I remember, because I was new, so I remember sitting at the table like, I don't know what I'm doing, and these guys like clearly know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm just here for, I don't know what for, but I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
But I know we're getting long. I don't know how long we want to go, but I want to like at least start with a way that the party gets together before they head to this town. Mm-hmm. And the reason I want to do that is because it helps with like, it gives them a direction to go. It gives you as a DM a direction to go.
So I would do something simple.
Okay.
I don't know what we haven't set what the main problem is of this first session.
We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would do is have it be they all encounter something, whether it's in the same encounter or it's different encounters, or it's like an encounter that the others kind of come upon partway through, but they all discover something that they need to report to the local police, pretty much, to the local guards, saying, hey, this is a problem that you have in your forest. You need to know about this. So that'll force all of them, first off, encounter it. Then they're all going to the exact same location.
Okay, I like this. I like this a lot. So let's do this. So one of my favorite ways to start a D&D campaign, because it's easy and it's simple, is either like you're in a caravan, it gets raided, you're in an airship, it crashes, and you now have to like go through the woods and get to this town, or
you just like the heroics beginning.
Yeah, the heroics beginning I think is a really good, high rollers. I think it's a really good example of, and again, Mark probably prepared his whole campaign, but it's a really good example of how to run a campaign if you don't have anything prepared in your world. Like if your characters start on an airship and it crashes in the woods,
and they don't know where they are.
Yeah, guess what you're looking for first? You're trying to find a town, right? You're trying to find
and
civilization.
And then that town you can have not know about the greater surrounding because they're a small kind of out of the way town, so they just know about their own lives and kind of the super close nearby area, but not more than that. So you'd have to go to the big city.
So what I'm thinking you would do. Exactly. So what I'm thinking you would do is you start with everybody on this airship, okay? And you give them an NPC that possibly is friends with this bad guy that we're kind of creating, right? And he gets hurt. Like he gets hurt in this airship crash. He breaks a leg, or maybe he, and he can't move. And so everybody kind of takes him to the town. And that's kind of their goal, is to get him back to town. Maybe he knows that there's a town, I don't know exactly where we are, but there's a town, to the east.
I don't see how this fits with what we've already created, though.
Well, I'll show you how it fits. And what I'm thinking is along the way, they get in some sort of encounter that possibly endangers the town. Like they find goblins that are preparing some sort of siege, or they, some sort of equipment, or does this make sense? Or they find
I just have a way of doing this like real quick.
Okay, yeah.
So you keep the airship crash, but instead have one character on the ship, But most of the characters would just be walking to the town and the airship suddenly crashes near them. They all run to see what happened.
Ooh.
And in doing so, when the cops show up, they're like, hey, why did you do this? And that's when our guy steps up and is like, no, I saw them. They didn't do anything. They just ran up to it. And then pretty much just leaves with the guards.
That's a super good idea.
But first, give them time to kind of search the airship.
Yeah, they're walking
before the guards.
The airship crashes, and they go to investigate what happens to the airship. Is that what we're thinking, or it doesn't?
So they're like traveling on the road, and it crashes nearby, and they run to see what happened. But by the time that they kind of get out of the wreckage, that's when the guards show up and are like, "Hey, what'd you do? Why'd you crash this?"
What if we took a page out of Chris's book and one of the survivors gives the party an object?
It could, yeah. Which could eventually lead to them being at odds with this other person who at first saved them.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe he saved them because he wanted that item, and maybe if they were to go to jail or something, he wouldn't have access to it, and he wouldn't be able to get it. So,
and so he starts hunting them. That is interesting.
Yeah.
But he has to do it on the fly because he has a public persona. Like maybe he's like a governor or something.
Exactly. Okay, I think that's a really good spot to stop. Party walking, airship crashes. Somebody gives them some sort of item, and the party kind of gets somewhat blamed for what's going on. And they're escorted to the town where maybe whoever this guy is possibly saves them because he wants the item that was given to them.
Cool.
That's super good. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Now I'm going to jump into the topic because I got to go quick because we're running long. This week, we're going to talk about the topic that we talked about last week, Cormanthyr, also known as Myth Drannor. But this week, we're going to look at it from another angle. We're going to start with a leader or coronal named Eltargrim Irithyl. Now, Eltargrim was the 6th coronal. He was the one who allowed the other races into the xenophobic society, but not for the good reasons. Instead, he did it because he feared that he couldn't keep them out forever. So better to allow them in slowly and on their own terms than to be forced to later. He was born into one of the 4 communities of Cormanthyr called Semberholm, a range of wooded hills that once homed elves that resided in caves. Early in life, he joined the standing army of Cormanthyr. He trained and took to heart much of what he learned here, maintaining his warrior lifestyle throughout, but without letting it be too overbearing. He wasn't one of those warrior rulers who were always in armor. Instead, he mostly appeared in royal robes. Now, kind of what type of elf Eltargrim Irithyl has kind of been reported differently in different writings, so it's kind of
in terms of like race,
up in the air which type of elf he's actually
Got
is.
it.
Now, before we go, yeah. So like the most things kind of say that he's a gold elf, which I also don't know what a gold elf is, but supposedly it's a type of elf. Now, before we go too far into Eltargrim, I need to discuss how Cormanthyr gets its leaders. When an older coronal named Coronal Eltargrim of Jurinstar fell ill, upon his fever proving incurable, and the future clearly showing that they were going to need a new coronal soon, he who was a prophet of the god Labellus Enorath said, "If we are to survive, as in the people's right, one coronal must vow to unify the tribes of this great land. One coronal must unify sun and moon, sky and sea, earth, tree, and root. His promise to all is long-lasting peace and strength in unity."
I have a question. And I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this, but is there a lot of like prophets, like prophecies and stuff in the D&D world? Because I feel like there would be, right?
Especially with as easy access to gods as they have, there are a lot of prophets. And also how gods like to have kind of a like to play with the world like little puppets.
I don't know, like I have a hard time in my games using prophets. I don't use a lot of prophets, but I think they're very interesting and fun
I love
to
prophets,
use.
but I have a hard time using them. I in my second major campaign, I started every single individual off with a prophecy.
Ooh, fun.
Every single PC was approached by a similar looking prophet who gave them a prophecy that kind of led them to their first mission together. It pretty much said, you need to go here for your future, and your grandeur was here. Like, this is what will start off your adventure.
Okay,
go here. Do this mission. I learned later that the person who gave them their first mission was also a follower of this god who gave them all prophecies.
Interesting. Did you find that players ever felt that was railroady? Just curious.
Well, no, it was because it wasn't because it felt like, because all it was getting the players together. It was a way of getting the players together without doing in a tavern or in this. But honestly, it kind of, if it felt railroady, it should have, because it was literally one god trying to railroad
and
real people.
All D&D campaigns start a little bit railroady.
Yeah, and part of the campaign was literally them choosing: do we want to keep following this railroad, or are we going to say screw you? We don't think what you're doing is good, so we're going to go to your enemies instead. And that's what they ended up doing. Now, in that campaign, the god who was trying to get them to work for him and come together was actually one of their parents. So one of them turned out to be a demigod and had to just straight up to their parent be like, no, screw you, you're evil, I don't agree with what you're doing. And it was a really cool campaign.
Interesting. And that was the one that was Primordials versus Gods type stuff, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Now, at this quote that we just read out, the young people of the tribes of elves that would become Cormanthyr work to prove themselves worthy of this mantle, hoping to be the next Coronal. Now, the culture of these elves had a prevalent ritual that they would do to kind of test people's capabilities for multiple different jobs. They called them Blade
That's
Rites.
A cool name.
Where 2 elven high mages and the one being tested would complete these rites with special blades forged for each job, and they would be tested and challenged in many different ways inside their mind. I feel like this is purposely left kind of vague so that like a DM could really make it what they want, but it says it kind of tests them in character, skill, capability, and like all these kind of things that it can really be left up to how does the DM want to test the player. So for this major decision, they created 3 elf blades. 1, the Ruler's Blade, and 2 Defender's Blades. One called the War Blade, and the second called the Art Blade.
Art Blade? Like drawing, writing stuff? What was it, a paintbrush?
Yep. The Ruler's Blade chose Eltargrim to be the leader. And in doing so, he was given magic because of his connection to the blade. Now, this warrior, who all his life had trained for this, suddenly got thrown into the world of rulership and magic. He gave up his commission with the army and began to study the new magic that he now had access to. He studied this magic in isolation for a long time to kind of get good at it. And he kind of developed who he was in that isolation. Also, the ideals of Coronal Eltargrim permeated much of Eltargrim's rule. The wish for unity among the elves of the area was definitely a goal of his. The areas around Cormanthyr. Eltargrim united much of the surrounding elves into kind of a Cormanthyr as it was. And as he did so, he kind of built it up as this kind of wonderful place. In doing so, the area around got surrounded by many different individuals, some human, some goblin kind. And even though in the history it was surrounded by other elven groups, it was now surrounded by others. This is when he came upon that we can't just hope to live here away from them forever. They're going to come in at some point. We need to figure this out. And in this xenophobic society, it was not liked. It was a very, why are you doing this? But he's like, no, we need to do it because either we're going to be forced.
Yo, Mom, a human move next
Yeah,
door.
pretty much. The areas around began to encroach on the elven land with goblins, humans, and more. And he began to make the types of decisions that would shadow his rule of this xenophobic society, starting with what's called the Dales Compact, where he made an allegiance with the humans nearby. As time went on, he concluded that Oasent's vow must have included the other races. So he set his vision not on just making the elves together, but making the world or the major area together as well. Seeing as that he felt that was part of what he was called to as not just a ruler, but as a chosen
Divine
ruler.
commission.
And in the end, he was incredibly successful at this. As I said last week, how he successfully created a city that was world renowned for its culture and inclusivity. Now, it is said that he was so happy with what he had done. And as he grew old and he got to see the city and nation and how it grew with everyone together, he actually went to death happily, choosing to ascend to the heavens when he did.
There's always a but, though. Where's the but?
I mean, I don't know if he was thick, but I mean, I'm sure he was.
Okay. All right. I set myself up for that. Okay.
You did.
But surely this can't just be the happy story. Surely there's a but.
No. Well, I mean, what the but was because we talked about it last week. How after he died, he left this magic sword, which chooses the successor to his chosen heir, Myth Irithyl, his grandniece. But she never got to because she was killed. And he ended up being the last Coronal to rule over Cormanthyr, as his death marked the death knell to the Empire, initiating a period called the Dusk, where they all kind of collapsed into a bunch of city-states.
It was good while it lasted.
It was good while it lasted. But now I was thinking we create an important person.
VIP, if you will.
I don't know if they're very, but they are important.
Okay.
I think they're an MVP maybe, but they are I don't know what they do. I don't know if they're like maybe we make them a prophet, since we talked about that earlier. Maybe they're a chosen but not a prophet. Like they're chosen to be a major person for a god, but they have no actual like prophetic ability. Maybe they're just an incredible wizard who shapes nations and the world. I don't know. Who do you think this important person is?
Boy, that is a really, really tough question. Do you have any idea of where you want to fit this into the world and into the timeline? Like, is this going to be a major world-changing event? You want it to be like near where the party takes place?
I want it to be where the party takes place. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I want that to be. I don't want it to be like, oh, he just showed up when the party's there, or I kind of want it to be like the tail end. Like maybe he's dying, and maybe that's like an important thing for the world, is that this person is dying.
Interesting. Do you have any idea of what he did, what you want him to do? Or are we kind of just...
I do not.
Okay. So, this is pretty difficult because we have a really big time frame that we're working with, and not a lot made about like the super modern part of our world. But maybe this guy can be a major part of the modern world. Like maybe he, founds a city, or maybe he
does something that takes it from feeling like an old world to a modern world. Maybe he creates something or helps build something that kind of makes it feel like it's modernized in a way.
What do you think that feat of magic? Do you think that would be governance?
I don't think it would be governance. I'm thinking magic.
Conquest?
I'm thinking either he creates like a powerful artifact or item that kind of becomes just like so popular and so used in the modern world that it helps kind of bring everything up. Or he like is such a major player in like, I mean, maybe it's political. Maybe he is able to unify things that were normally like hey, we're not making any progress in this area because all our focus is on fighting each other. And he's the one who's able to bring them out of that into the future.
What if... Okay, my first initial thought when we talked about magic is, what if he is somebody who like studies the I don't want to say the pursuit, the knowledge of how to keep magic from being like from waning, and he develops some sort of society around that. That could be interesting. That could be very fun, where it's like a very magical society. But
well, so we already kind of did that kind of that society that created that bubble to give themselves extra. What if what if instead he what if he finds a way to create an item while magic is still prevalent enough that just helps make everyone's life easier, as if it was a massively magical society, but it's not anymore.
Have we also determined what like our technology level would be? Because you could do something with this too, with technology.
No,
like we could do like, he's the guy who first invented gunpowder, right? And kind of is leading that kind of charge. We could do something with steampunk. Could be really fun too. Like maybe he has a cool steamwork city that he made.
Okay. How about this? What if he's dead?
That's a good start.
So he's dead at where the party in the world takes place. He's dead. He actually was from like a super early time, and he invented black powder, but nobody cared because they had magic. Now that magic's dying, everyone is rushing to figure out how to use it.
Ooh,
that could be really interesting because nobody knows what to do with it yet. They're just like, okay, this can create a large spark, or like a large explosion.
I think it could also be,
how do we use this? How do we make it?
I think it'd also be fun to throw in a little bit of like, I don't want to say robotics, but it could be fun to like throw in a little bit of like golemancy or something in there too that maybe he used or did, because I think it could be really fun with the world now trying to search for, well, not, I guess the world isn't 100% aware, but for more powerful figures within society to be looking for new answers and how they can control and rule the world. So I really love the idea of gunpowder being a thing that this guy had invented, and people are now searching for it. The thing is I don't know. Okay, I'm not a scientist or an expert in this field, or an alchemist, probably more the correct term. I don't really know the process of making gunpowder and how easy it is to figure out.
Sorry, did you call them an alchemist?
I don't really know. What was that?
Did you call them an alchemist?
Well, could be an alchemist.
Like that's what you think? The real world? No. In the real world, it's a chemist.
Yes. But I'm talking D&D world. D&D world, an alchemist would probably make an alchemist would probably make gunpowder.
I'm not one of these, so you're clearly talking about the real world. And I'm like, wait, did you just say in the real world you call it an alchemist? I definitely could
see how that was incredibly confusing.
I'm like, I think it'd be very funny to call a real life chemist, oh, you're an alchemist.
Listen, chemist is in the name, right?
I don't know how they would take it, but I think it'd be very funny.
No, I don't know. If I was in this, I was just trying to put myself in the fantasy world. If I was like an alchemist or like somebody who was good with magic, how easy would it be for me to discover and figure out how gunpowder works? And I don't know the answer to that, which I guess we could make it difficult, but like could somebody who wants to find gunpowder figure out how to make something explode with gunpowder? Probably, right? So I like the idea of it being gunpowder, but I think it could be interesting if it was something more. But I have no idea what something more would be, though. Like, if magic was waning, the next logical step would be, I mean, honestly, probably gunpowder. That's probably what it would be. That's the problem.
Yeah, gunpowder is such a good...
I mean, unless we did...
Okay, if we don't want to do gunpowder... But see, no, we want to. If we're going to create a steampunk world, we need to start from J1 thinking it's steampunk and create something really interesting. I don't think we can do that this way. So I think I want to start with.
Say we have a society that, this creation exploded.
Well, okay, I don't mean that that's how it has to be. I just think that's what I want it to be when we create for our first steampunk world. I think we're definitely going to create multiple by the end of this But I think
Got it.
for our first one, I want it to be devoted to how is this world steampunk?
Okay, yeah, no, okay, I got it. It makes sense. So then I guess gunpowder would be the logical next step. But what did he discovered how to make gunpowder?
Yeah, and he died in obscurity.
And so like nobody knows about this substance called gunpowder, or the black bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it would probably be called. I don't know what it would be called. Would it be called gunpowder?
The soot of the gods.
Probably not. What was that?
The soot of the gods.
Dandruff. Yes.
You take something cool and you make it lame. You're really good, Aaron. You're good at that.
Let's roll with gunpowder. I think that works. Let's roll with gunpowder. So he created gunpowder. What was he doing with this gunpowder? What was his purpose?
He was just an inventor.
Experimenting?
He was an inventor who figured it out, and he was like, that's so cool. I can do magic without magic. Or maybe that's what he was trying to do. Maybe he was... Oh, okay. He's actually someone who's terrible. Like, just a horrible person. And he screwed... Whoa. Either he messed with the gods some way, or he hurt a bunch of people and the gods cursed him. But whatever it is, the gods took away all magic from this person. So he, in an earlier age, had to figure out, how do I do magic without magic?
Well, my mind...
So maybe now that everyone's having that problem, they're like, hey, wasn't there that guy from history who tried to do that?
Okay. The first thing my mind goes to, and feel free to absolutely blow up my idea, pun intended, but what if we haven't really created the person who figured out or discovered that the divine gate is closing, and that's what's shutting off magic. What if he wanted to create a substance that could theoretically explode or blow up the divine gate and let magic pour down onto society again?
Oh, he was trying to blow up the divine gate?
Yeah, like he was trying to literally...
Now,
not that it would work.
That is interesting, and I like that.
Like,
and then my second question was going to be, would it work?
Here's my thought. And this is super outlandish and could be incredibly silly. But what if we run with the idea of, like, the soot of the gods? And what if he, when making and experimenting with this, he had such a huge explosion within, like, maybe the mountain society that it caused some sort of eruption? And so there's like a whole story dedicated to the soot of the gods, where like this is their wrath. You don't experiment with this stuff because this is what happens when you use the black powder. Mm-hmm. Right? When you use this stuff, this is what our wrath does to the people. And so maybe there's like a story involved with this explosion that happened, that created some sort of, slight like calamity, like a small little, disaster of some kind, but it could be very interesting to do something like that. Agreed? Thoughts?
Totally agree.
Okay. So let's figure out, how did he come to the knowledge that magic was ending and the divine gate was closing? You said gods possibly took this magic away. They did something. He did something that made them angry.
I know. I'm having a hard time with it, though. I don't know what he did, whether it was like incredibly terrible, like he did like genocide and terrible things, or it was just like he pissed off a god.
I kind of want to stay away from he did terrible things, and I kind of want to go more towards the line of like a genius, like a prodigy. And I'm thinking there's got to be some sort of connection between him wanting to keep magic around, the gods, and then trying to use a device that gives people magic back. So he grew up as like a genius and a prodigy with magic and research and study. And he figured out the reason behind the waning of magic, or he maybe discovered that magic was waning, one of the firsts, or maybe one of those, because it hasn't been waning for long, right? That's kind of our idea. Or it has been, but not very noticeable until, it's starting to get more noticeable.
Yeah, people haven't noticed it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have an exact reason? Like, we have the Divine Gate is closing, but do we have... I can't remember if we made the reason behind why the Divine Gate is closing. Was it because the gods wanted to stop magic from happening? Was that what we were thinking? Because they wanted to be the only gods left, so they were stopping the creation energy.
So that was why they threw the
right,
the meteor
so
down.
Is this like a humans are starting to learn how to create with magic, so they're starting to... the gods are trying to...
No, so what was happening was there was a creature on the world that was drawing in energy, magic, and it was making magic wane. I don't think... there was the god who got kicked out of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Do we have the gods trying to kill this creature?
I don't think we ever had.
I don't think we made a reason why the magic was.
I don't think that it is. I don't think the Divine Gate needs to be closing. I think the Divine Gate's just really hard to get through.
So, okay, here's how I want to possibly close all these gaps. No pun intended yet again. But I'm thinking we have this being down on the earth, on the material plane, that is like absorbing and taking away magic, okay? And I'm thinking that when this meteor hit this creation energy and it shot magic throughout the world, I'm thinking that maybe there was some sort of... I'm thinking maybe the gods put after seeing all these things that it was creating, like storms and plagues and, disasters, that maybe they sealed some of this magic away with the Divine Gate kind of allowing the amount of magic to occur and fall through, okay? I think that's incredibly reasonable, and I think that's interesting. I then think the gods yet again start seeing that when this Divine Gate is open and more magic falls onto society, that the world becomes yet again another place where gods can be created, because that was our reason for them destroying this creation energy in the first place, okay? So maybe we had some sort of event in history where somebody ascends to godhood using a magical ritual or something, okay? Something along those lines where the gods are like, whoa, we're the only gods that should be, created, continuing to exist and be created. And so what I think is the gods come to the attention that there is a magical being that is eliminating magic within the world, okay? Like, it's slowly absorbing and destroying magic. And so the gods think, if we close the Divine Gate, the access point to which magic flows through, and the access point for them to get to us, that if we close it, the rest of the remaining magic within the world will eventually disappear, and there will be no more creation when it comes to magic, right? No more gods being created. No more, powerful entities or powerful beings being released or created or, thought up of. And so they start closing the gate, which then directly impacts the amount of magic that flows through to the world. When there's no more, when you cut off the source or dam up the river, so to speak, this entity that's in the pond already, that's drinking all the water, will drink all of it until it's gone. And so they're like, this is our way to stop humanity. And, I think they'd probably be thinking it's for good reason too, right? They're thinking, maybe we can stop humanity from destroying itself, from creating gods that they shouldn't be creating, from,
how about this?
And probably selfish reasons too.
Can we do this can we change it to a thing out of fear?
Sure. Yeah. I think there's a multitude of reasons.
So this creature that's on the earth, some reason it has like protection against gods. Like, I don't know what it does, but the gods can't find it. The gods can't affect it in any way, because it was made out of the energy that created them. Like, maybe that has something to do with it. They're unable to affect it.
Yeah.
But they realize what you just said. The magic comes from them. So they close the Divine Gate eventually this thing will run out of energy to absorb and will just die.
Yeah, no, I think
so. They're like, hey, we can just start again. We could just create another world. We just got to let this thing die out of starvation.
Perfect. No, I think that is a perfect reasoning, and I think that's they see this magical creature, and perhaps they're worried that it might become a god. Perhaps they're worried that if it does become a god and they can't hurt it because it's made of this creation energy, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen to humanity? So their ultimate goal,
exactly, it's right. Out of
so
fear.
Their ultimate goal is to prevent this thing from becoming the magical divine entity that they believe it might be. And I think gods in this world aren't necessarily all-knowing. I think I like that because it definitely doesn't seem
not.
like it, right? Maybe there's a god who...
I like the fact that they're created by people that they just kind of, because of that, they're
limited as well. In that, at least in that terms. But yeah, I like that a lot. So they can't see the future. They don't know what's going on. So they start to close the divine gate so that this magical entity will starve itself out, so to speak, of magical energy. Enter our brave magical genius who somehow finds out that there is this gate that is slowly closing that's preventing the magical energy from falling to the earth, and it would obviously affect him heavily because he is an arcane practitioner. So he starts to research into why this divine gate is closing, or what is this divine gate, and start trying to figure out, essentially what's going on here. And the gods are like, no, right? The gods wouldn't like that for obvious reasons. They don't want him to ruin any plan. They don't want this secret getting out. So they take away his ability to do magic, so he can no longer practice and no longer influence the divine gate, this magical creature, or anything like that. So they try and take away his magic. Well, this obviously makes him super sketched out about the gods, as it would. And so he starts to think, how can I regain my power and deliver the world back the magic that it's lost? And that is through some sort of other medium that you can use to blow up the gate and bring it back to the world. And so he makes and discovers gunpowder. He then, and this is where I want your expertise, if you will. Does he blow it up himself, or does something sabotage it? How does he come to this glorious explosion? Does he glorious end?
Does he explode what himself?
Like, does he create a bunch of black powder and explode it himself, thinking he can get to the gate? Does he do some sort of experiment that he launches it from a trebuchet? Does he get to that point? Does somebody stop him? Does something stop him?
I think.
What are we looking at here?
I think that he.
I'm okay if it's funny too, to be honest. It could be very comical.
Okay. I think he tries to use it to fly because he needs to reach the gate. Okay. So first he tries to create some way to fly up there, and it goes horribly wrong.
Creates a bunch of black powder, loads it all up, aims it up, maybe he's at the top of this volcano, okay? Yes, I like this actually. He climbs up to the top of this volcano with all this black powder he's created, okay? And he gets to the peak of the gods, right? The place that's closest to the gods. And he decides that he can use this black powder to fly it up towards the divine gate and then explode it all. But I think, and this is I think where you're probably going with this, is that instead of propelling it at beautiful speeds towards the divine gate, the entire thing explodes.
Well, so no, I kind of want it to be. I kind of want it to be. He's holding a bunch of it in his hands. He has the package that he's gonna light when he gets to the gate in his hands. He has some strapped to special boots that are like rocket boots, but he doesn't realize how unstable it is, and so when he launches, he accidentally ignites the stuff in his hands.
Okay. What is the scale? I think our scale might be a little bit off. My scale versus your scale. What is
Like 1/3.
What is the amount that he has at his disposal?
1 to 3, maybe like one for every 3 inches or something. I don't know.
Because I'm thinking the amount of.
I'm talking about scale.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. No. You know what? I'm thinking that the amount of black powder he has is not as simple as a 1 unit to 3 inches. I'm thinking he's got a lot of black powder, and I'm talking.
I think he could have as much as he wants, as much as he can make.
Yeah, and I think he spent years and years producing this black powder and hauling it up. What does he use to haul it up? Oh man, that is a question. Well, I think that's details, but he has spent years creating and making this bomb to deliver to the Arcane Gate or to the Divine Gate.
No. I got it. Okay. So, yes, he spent years. He has a huge stash. What he does is he, like, every few years takes a pilgrimage with everything that he's made so far and brings it up to his kind of storage spot in the mountains. He doesn't know there is a half-life. Like, there is a time that it becomes less explosive. So he goes up there after near the end of his life, as he's like, okay, this is the last shot. I have as much as I think I can make before I don't know if I'm going to live or not, because I could die anytime. He goes to light a whole bunch of it off to kind of propel him. It doesn't explode very much because it's kind of reached. It's kind of like it's not as useful after a certain amount of years. He didn't know that. So he tries, he's first off incredibly frustrated. And in his frustration, he puts a huge amount underneath him to help launch him. Most of it is new powder.
And he just blows up.
It doesn't go well.
Now, here's... I have another idea that kind of plays off this. What if, he doesn't know there's a half-life of, black powder. He doesn't know that, he's trying to light it off and nothing seems to be working. What if he, knows that he's on a volcano and he's like, well, what better way to light something on fire than to use the volcano? And, he either dumps a bunch of it in there to get, the volcano to trigger, or he... Because I want this to be a disaster.
Well, I mean, after he explodes, you could definitely have the rest of it
the volcano.
Fall into the volcano and then collapse the volcano.
No.
So it falls in, the rest of the stuff
explodes the walls of the volcano out.
Then there's a huge landslide or earthquake, which actually would make the volcano erupt as well.
Yeah. If it's which
would devastate even more.
It needs to be a ton, but
okay. I think that's what happens. And I think we have this down, so I think I'm going to end it here. This is episode 85 of Dungeoneered.
A very explosive episode, if you will.
Thank you all for listening. It was. If you listen to us on any podcasting apps that have ratings and reviews, it really helps the show. If you write a review, really shows you're engaging with the show.
Blow up that like button.
Yeah, blow up that like button. It really helps show that you're engaging with the show in more ways than just one. Kind of brings more attention to the show.
Create some fireworks in the comments, please.
If you would like to write to us, you can write to us at dungeoneered@hotmail.com. We'd love to hear from you if you have ideas for topics or lukewarm opens, or just want to talk to us about something interesting we made or you made, or we'd just love to hear it. We'd like to hear from our fans. Anything else you can add, Aaron?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
Well, as I always say, always remember to be the sharpest barrel
you so much.
in the bunch. See you next time.
Bye.